Welcome to Film Crack, and I'm Desperate Dagon Dan, and I've just had myself a delicious helping of cow and tentacle pie. And who are you?
Fuck you, Clive.
Oh,
That's who I am. I'm,
oh,
I'm, Capu-
that's a coincidence.
So Clive likes to set these things up. I suspect before he comes on, or he's a quick man. It's possible he comes up with them off the top of his head, but he does like to leave you with a setup that you can't possibly do, unless maybe you're Darren. Darren's good at that stuff. Darren's a quicker man than I. So, um,
Well,
but
fuck
yeah,
you, Clive. That works
that'll work.
as a moniker.
So yes, Clive.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Dan. What are we talking about?
Well, fuck you. FY, as I like to
Yes.
call you. Yeah, so we're talking. So where was it? Over at Prolix Comics Bollocks. We did
Hmm.
a couple of At the Mountains of Madness graphic novels.
Yep.
One of them by Tanabe Go. So yes, so that we're gonna have a loose kind of a Japanomicon.
Hmm.
It's fine, it's not racist. I have cultural immunity. The Japanomicon series
Hmm.
started with that and migrating over to film crack, and I think may extend over to literary as fact, but we'll talk a bit more about that later
Yep.
next to this. So yeah, so this started off because I think both of us were very interested to see the 1992 Japanese TV movie adaptation for TBS, I think,
Hmm.
of H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, right?
Hmm.
I think it had been on our list for a while, right?
I realized when I started to watch it this time that I might have actually
Seen it before?
watched it before, but
Right.
without subtitles, like
Yes, it was up on YouTube without
in
subtitles.
7 parts or something. I remember at
Yeah,
that point, and I think I might have even watched it, and then somebody had put it up with a kind of a rough explanation of what was going
that's
on in
right.
it.
That's right. That's right.
And I watched that version like years ago, and I was very happy to return to it and actually
Yeah.
be able to follow the dialogue.
So I always held out, and yes, recently on a perfectly legitimate forum, a kind of HD or as HD as you can get for something that was shot for TV in the early 90s, right? Version popped up with subtitles.
Mhm.
It's 55 minutes long, directed and written by Chiaki Konaka
Mhm.
or Chiaki J Konaka. I don't know what the J is for sometimes. And we'll get back to Konaka-san a little bit later, I think, because he's kind of an interesting character. So so this stars Shiro Sano
Mhm.
as a freelance travel photographer, right?
Mhm.
Who's looking to
Yeah.
get work at a travel magazine. And the editor, I guess, at the magazine kind of mentions this old timey photographer, right?
Right.
Um looking to get a job. Sano's character goes off to a bookshop and he finds a book of his old photos, and they seem to have in them these kind of vaguely fishman looking.
Fish frog folks. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I tell you, if he was, I don't know if he did that. Kimura Takeshi from Kurosawa films would have been perfect. They wouldn't have
Yes.
taken or
Yeah.
anything. Uh, or flew over Lowly.
Yeah. 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 That's true. Yeah. The Innsmouth look is strong with some folk uh, on that side
Yes,
of the pond.
yes. Pond. I like how. So um yes, and it turns out this book is a book of pictures from a place called Innsmouth.
Mhm.
It's kind of it's an odd I it's odd that they decided like not to switch the name
Yeah.
anything more Japanese sounding. So it is
Yes.
Innsmouth.
Yes. So there is a much later adaptation by Stuart Gordon, right,
Yes.
called Dagon,
Dagon.
and
Good
which
film.
is also not set in like it's not set in the States, right? The original short story is set in the, the milieu of like the rest of Lovecraft stories, right? This
Yes,
kind of
Rhode Island, basically,
Rhode
isn't it?
Island-y,
Yeah.
area. But yeah, that one's set in Spain, and they do change the name to Imboca, which is
Ah, right. Okay.
Innsmouth in Spanish, right? But yeah,
Yes.
I was all surprised, like, oh, they've just called it Arkham and Dunwich, and like there's at one
Yeah.
point they go to a train station, which is awesome because it's clearly a Japanese little countryside train
Yes.
station. And they've changed the sign out, and you're like, those are very
Arkham.
non-Japanese sounding places.
Well, what's interesting is it also has it in kanji.
Yes.
Like it had it in English and it had it in kanji. Now my kanji is not strong enough to be able to determine, but I assume that kanji actually does spell out Arkham, right?
Right.
It's quite, if you're just using it phonetically, kanji can be quite you know, diverse and
Mhm.
you can use it in interesting ways, right? But I was wondering if that Arkham actually did spell out Arkham, and even if they chose kanji that maybe kind of matched the feeling of the original name.
Yeah.
But yes, he does go to, so yeah, he gets off the train at Arkham and he goes to nearby Innsmouth, which we discover once, fished. There was like an amazing amount of fish out of the place, and now it's dead, right? And
Yeah. The
and
bus driver is fantastic.
right,
Like that whole second, and again, a lot of this part of the story, other than his job being a travel photographer, right? But a lot of this hews quite closely to the original
it's quite
story
close. Yeah, yeah, and there's
at
like
this point.
there's a cab driver. There's a young girl, Michiko Kwai, who takes him out there, and she
She's definitely not in the original story.
no, and she tries to kind of make her move it, but he's been spellbound, I suppose, by this older, beautiful woman, right?
Who he's been dreaming of as well, right? Basically, like there's this
Yes,
kind of weird mix up of like what's real and what's his dreams, right?
played by Kimie Shinyoja, who I think was a model, I think. Um,
She's quite striking. She's quite slightly odd looking, but she's definitely
yeah, yeah,
striking in the kimono and her walking on the beach and
yeah,
stuff.
and yeah, so it's the Lovecraft stuff you expect, right? Like he finally kind of figures out. Well, to be honest, it's kind of vague. It's not. It doesn't put a button on it, right? It doesn't say exactly.
No, no,
Reggie Shabasi plays the guy who runs the local museum.
yeah, he's good too.
Yeah, yeah, he's always good. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you thought. For me, the other thing that was a bit weird that Michiko Kwai's character only seems to have some cover version of Painted Black in her car, which we
Yeah,
many, many, many times,
yeah,
which
that
is a
that's
little
like
odd. Um,
hmm
but yeah, so I was pleased to finally see this. It
hmm
was nice to see it, but it's a little on the nose and a bit silly, isn't it? Don't you think? Like it's a bit too front and center, like from the opening shot with its kind of fishman
hmm
thing. Like it's kind of silly more than anything else. It's certainly not scary or particularly creepy, or it has an atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it does. I would argue. Yeah, I think you know what? It's yeah. I think I like it probably more than it deserves
Where was
to
it
be.
shot, do you think?
So my guess is because to me it really looks like Izu. It really looks like the Izu Peninsula to me, like Shimoda, Atami. But I mean,
Yeah,
I know a lot of seaside Japan kind of has that look, but was almost sure I kind of recognized
it did
certain.
look very Atami. I mean, there could also be a bit of Chiba or something in there, maybe as well. But and all places within 2-3 hour ride of central Tokyo, right? So it would have
Okay,
been
yeah.
easy enough for them to pile into a location bus in TBS and go and film,
Mhm.
So it could be a number of
To me,
locations.
it suits it. It suits it really well. I mean, I think it does put across that feeling of a kind of a decaying, slouching fishing
Yeah,
town that's down at heels and then there's a scene quite early on when he goes into like the local like izakaya or whatever and I thought it was quite well done like just the vague feeling of menace and these weird
Yeah,
looking patients
it's
and
not
stuff.
it's not terrible at all. I think my problem with it maybe is the I think that stuff's fine. I think the stuff where it's very low key and it's a kind of a brooding kind of, and you're not quite sure what it is, that's fine. And they could have extended that out even to feature length, I think. But when it gets more explicit,
Mhm.
it doesn't have the budget to back it up, I think.
Yes, yes.
So it just
It
looks very like those fishmen and stuff, they require to be shot on film and to have nice lighting. But on the
yes,
kind of it's the Doctor Who problem in a way, isn't it?
yes, yes.
Um, but again, of course, we do like the Doctor as well, right? So
Mm.
but there's a certain amount of what's the word? A special pleading going on there, right? Like you have to overlook. But I get you. It does have a certain charm, and I I did enjoy watching it. But if we're going to be real about this, I think we do have to point that out that it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely it's rough around the edges,
It's
and
a bit too pronounced, not just in terms of visuals, but like, the old man disappearing from the bench and there's like pond scum.
time.
Like it's a bit, and the fact that people are going from Arkham to Innsmouth, like I think it would have benefited from changing the place names as well, I think.
Yeah. At the same time, it's funny. Like I feel like they oh shoot, I might have lost my train of thought there. It'll come back. But no, it's not going to. So you feeling dead air there, Clive, while I try to.
I was thinking of it in, yeah, so you mentioned Dagon. I think that's probably still the cinematic benchmark for this story, right? Um,
Right.
there's other ones out there I don't think I've seen actually, and I'm going by the IMDb, so it might be not right, but there's one, the deep ones from 2020, um,
Okay.
Cthulhu from 2007 apparently is an Innsmouth adaptation. And then I hadn't thought about it, but yes, I suppose the Sergio Martino film Screamers, Island of the Mutations
Island of the Fisherman,
yeah,
yes.
is kind of Dagon-y. And one I don't think I've ever actually seen, City Under the Sea, Vincent
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Price.
I was looking up that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be keen to watch it because it's Jacques Tourneur, right? It's the guy who made like Night of the Demon and No Slack.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I don't think it's one of those, you know, yeah, it's just one of those Vincent Price films I never quite got round. Like you're not
Mhm.
sure if you saw it or not. Did I see that?
Right.
Is that City Under the Sea? Is that one with Doug McClure? Or you get them
Hmm.
mixed up, right? But I don't think I've seen City Under the Sea. So I'll definitely want to rectify that.
I read a really good review actually of this where they kind of talked about how, in a way, um, it might have actually been that article we were talking about before that where the original seven parts were put up, and then
Hmm.
this person kind of went through. So Tokyo Scum Brigade, look, that's
Same
the
bunch of lads.
yes, check that out and their Shadow over Innsmouth review. And he talks about how, and I think this is fair. One of the things that is nice, and we talk about this when we talk about Ramsey Campbell, actually, is if you're going to adapt Lovecraft, it is best to kind of maybe try to tie it into like local issues. And one of the
Hmm.
big issues of this story, which is not necessarily in the original like short story, is this idea of like the dying small, well, I guess the dying small town is there, but this feeling of like, oh, small towns are dying all over Japan, right? Because of that brain drain to Tokyo, because young people didn't want to stay and farm or fish or do these, more kind of manual labor type of jobs. And so in the story, like that girl, she kind of like, so in this, he talked about these three things. It's called like the I turn, the J turn, and the U turn. And
Hmm.
I never heard of this before, right? But like the I turn being like you go from your hometown and you go to Tokyo and you never come home.
Right.
And the J turn where you go, but then you kind of come back and live in a place that's kind of close, but a little better than your hometown, but
Right.
like the
Right.
next city over. And then the U turn where like you go away to the big city, and then eventually you just find yourself back
Right.
in Innsmouth again, and that this story, I mean, that girl, the cab driving girl, she's really clear about like, I don't want to abandon
Mm.
my home. I don't want to go be another one who goes off to Tokyo and like forgets about who I am and where I'm from.
Right.
And I think,
Unfortunately, it's noble, but the flip side is apparently you only have a cassette of the Painted Blacks cover band
yeah,
because they don't sell anything else.
yeah, and there's a fair amount of inbred fish people in your hometown that
And that, although to be
I
honest,
would say my
hearing that
hometown.
Painted Black over and over and over again would
Yes.
be more problematic than the Fishmen, I think.
Hmm. But it's funny because the one thing that this thing does do, like you said, is it. I feel like if you watch this without having read the story, you really would be struggling to understand what's going on in the last act. Like, I don't think you put it together that like that clearly that there even was this, because they kind of allied that whole thing about this intercourse between the sea demons, and that it was a deal that the fish were only there because they'd made a deal with these deep ones, and that involved a certain amount of inbreeding, and that, because that's all a big part of the story, but it's left very much
Yeah. Well, I
unclear.
suppose if you wanna pull it into, I mean, there's always humanized from the deep, right?
I was struggling to remember that. That's why I got lost. I was
Ah,
struggling to remember the title of Roger Corman's. Yes, because it is in a way
yeah, and it's a great film. It's
related.
an
Yeah,
exploitation film. Yeah.
yeah.
I
And
need to see. I haven't seen that in years, and I've never
good
seen
looking fish man, you know.
Yeah.
And much better than what is it, Monster Beach Party, which is, I assume, the other
Or
show over in.
Party Beach, you mean?
Oh yeah, Horror Party. Sorry, yes, that's the one where all the fishmen have, frankfurters sticking out of their mouths. Or something.
Including, yeah, but they are kind of gross.
Disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
I would cautiously recommend it. Certainly, if you're a fan of the story, and there's a paucity of
yes, no,
adaptation
I
in
agree.
any
I
form,
agree. It's
right?
definitely a
And
curiosity worth a look, right?
yeah,
Konaka Chiaki as well is kind of an interesting uh fe-
Jackie's a unisex name. I'm just realizing that I've almost always known ladies with the name Jackie, but I'm assuming it's a like Yuki. It's a unisex
Yes, yeah.
Japanese name.
So he's kind of most well known, oddly enough, now for being involved in the worlds of Ultraman and Digimon, right? But
Okay,
for instance, he co-wrote Hideki Evil Dead Trap 2, also starring Shiro Sano, and Door 3, Lady Poison, and yes. So I discovered some kind souls have put up some kind of quite obscure 90s direct-to-video featurettes based on Konaka screenplays uh,
okay.
online. So I think our next show, the next one will be a big reveal when we talk about our next film of this double. But the next show, let's tackle a triple or maybe even quartet, or I believe the correct term is quadrilogy, of course,
Quadrilogy, yes.
of Konaka films. What do you think of that?
Mhm.
Do you like this idea?
That sounds good. Are they all feature length, or are they
I
more?
think three of them are feature like 50 minutes, and then one of them is full length. So
Okay, okay.
then
So
we'll definitely have had enough of it by then.
then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
they're
sounds
quite,
good.
once upon a time they would have been quite difficult to find, trapped
Mhm.
on VHS. But yeah, they put them on their subbed as well. At least most of them are, I think. So
Yeah, sounds good to me.
yeah, so to kind of further the Konaka connection, I also
Mhm.
almost said Koneko connection, but that of course would be which is and that's another show we're going to do all about fluffy kittens,
Mhm.
just to show our softer side.
Mhm.
Kicked off because of, so we'll get to these, I think. So I hope you'll be ordering them soon, Nick.
Oh
So
yes, yeah.
Night Voices, Night Journeys, Layers of the Hidden Gods, Villain One, and this is Tales in the Cthulhu Mythos from Japan.
Mhm.
Also the second one, Inverted Kingdom. I think there's three, but I think we'll just stick with the two.
Mhm.
So the second one actually has a Konakachiaki story in there.
Okay.
And originally we were maybe, so I had the first volume and I wasn't sure if it was worth it, but I've been reading further into it, and there's actually at least 2 or 3 stories that definitely make it worth reading.
Okay.
That's the fascinating history of Cthulhu mythos in Japan essay, which is really interesting.
Right.
So I'm thinking we will do volume 1 and volume 2 if you're up for it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the Konaka Chiaki story.
Okay.
Maybe we'll drop that literary effect around the same time as we do the Konaka films.
Yeah. Okay.
So that'll
Makes sense.
the Japanomicon diaspora. It's okay. It's okay. I have a cultural
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
So yeah, so anyway, that's how the idea seeded, and we're INNSMOUTH. I think, what shall we double this one? What else? Now there was that Brian Usner backed Necronomicon film,
Yes.
the anthology, right? Which I believe had Japanese money in it, right?
It did. Yeah, it was a Japanese, French, US co-production.
Yes, and one of the episodes was directed by someone as well, Japanese, I think. I can't
Yes.
remember who. Off the
It's
top.
the one with who it's got is that the one that's got Jeffrey Combs in like ridiculous face lengthening makeup in an attempt to
I
make
think
him
so.
look like Lovecraft? I think
Yes,
it's him.
so.
Yeah.
It's funny to look back on it now, but I guess post Reanimator, there was a lot of Lovecraftia about. I mean, in the mainstream in the 80s and 90s. I mean, if you actually look up H.P. Lovecraft on the IMDb, for example, you realize there's fucking loads, more than you realize about the picture, but they're mostly like short films.
They're mostly shorts, yes, from various film festivals and stuff.
But there always has been. There always has been. But for some reason in the 80s and 90s, it went overground and people, after the Reanimator was a hit, and then from it, you put Lovecraft's name on things, it would guarantee a certain amount of video sales, right? So but yeah, so I was thinking, what could we do? And I was thinking, aha, Mystery of the Necronomicon. No, I haven't seen this, even though I will get to this later, as well as this connects to our next show about this disc lying around for a long time. But yeah, so this is a 4-part OVA from I think 99, I think.
For those of you uninitiated, that stands for original video animation.
Yes.
As opposed to like a lot of Japanese animation obviously went to television or to cinemas.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, there was a direct to DVD or direct to VHS market originally, right?
Yes, yes. Which I have to admit, a lot of that stuff I'm only getting to now for a very specific reason, because maybe if you grew up in a urban kind of area where there were a lot more video shops in every corner, and therefore it was worth, it was worth the owners of those, buying kind of more niche products. And if you were out in the sticks like we were, the post Akira, Manga Mania and boom on VHS. The thing is, that was a sell-through phenomenon. Like, you weren't seeing
expensive.
Yes,
like insanely expensive. Like each tape was like $75, $80, and then the pricks would release like one episode per VHS, and you're like, oh, this series is 52 episodes long.
Right. Yeah. Well, they weren't that badly priced in the UK, but they were still full price original. Like, you could buy a feature film for £15, or you could get like a 45-minute episode, and it's only like 1/4 of the. They would release them in that way, and I think I mean, I don't know someone was buying them, right? And if I could have afforded to have bought them, I would have. But
adults who were wealthier than us, like when you're a kid, you can't do that.
I guess, yeah. So I was very much dissuaded. I was really interested. I wanted to watch, 3x3 Eyes, Doomed Megalopolis, whatever, AD, Tank Police or whatever. I wanted to watch all these things. I was really interested, but it was just like, well, I can't fucking afford it. And they very rarely turned up on television as well. That's the thing.
Right. I think we were luckier here in terms of access to that stuff at rental shops. I do think that once that post-Akira boom, like a lot of like by the mid 90s, you know, even early 90s, but definitely by the mid 90s, you could go into most video shops here and they would have a standalone, you know, anime section,
Right,
where you
right.
were able to get a lot of that stuff. So yeah, and we were obviously just renting and duping the tapes and then trading them with friends. Yeah, yeah. So there's the things called video cassette recorders, Clive, and you could if you bought two of them,
This is
you
shocking. This sounds like crime to me. This sounds like gateway crime, and it's heroin in the eyeballs next. That's what it is.
yes,
But anyway, we'll overlook your youthful indiscretion and hope the statute of
thank you.
limitations has run out. Although I will be phoning the FBI as soon as we're done. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so that's why I'm kind of a bit late, and it's fascinating to come back to this stuff now. Actually, in fact, in a way, I might even be pleased that it's more interesting now, maybe as a time capsule,
Yes.
a lot of this stuff, because it was so ubiquitous and so there was so much of this. Like I remember, this is amazing to me now because I'm such a connoisseur of it now. But like back in the day, you'd be no more fucking hentai tentacle porn, and I'm
Hmm.
thinking, what an amazing state to be in. Like no, no, no,
Where
no, no, give me more of that. I'm really interested to see more of that, right? But so yeah, Mystery of the or Kurono Dansho,
hmm
4-part OVA, as we said, all together running about just over 2 hours, I think. And
hmm
again, we didn't have to fork out like 20 quid.
No.
I'm
Yep.
not actually sure because to fess up here again, we did watch bootlegs of this grabbed off the internet because I don't know how easy to find this is now in terms of a physical copy or who put it out. I've no idea actually, but someone subtitled it.
Okay, apparently, so there's actually a really good article about this on deepcuts.blog
Okay.
about Mystery of the Necronomicon. And apparently it was originally released on DVD and Laserdisc, dubbed and released into English-speaking markets in 2007 on VHS and
And
DVD.
there's a dub as well.
The dub, yeah.
Oh, okay. So
But-
I love anime dubs of this period. They're
oh
so
yeah,
over the top. They're fucking
yeah.
and a lot of unnecessary swearing, right? Like,
So much.
yeah,
And also voice actors you know from like legit mainstream stuff that was on TV. You're like, oh, that's the voice of that character from like
yeah,
Robotech or like something that's like totally innocuous, but
yeah.
now they're saying like, yeah,
Get your
stuff.
fucking ass in here, Kayama, or something like that.
Exactly. Um,
Whereas in the original, it's like Doto or something like that.
yeah, the most amazing
What
version.
day could I say? Like, sit your fucking ass down.
The most amazing version of that is definitely those two beautifully animated Devilman adaptations from the late 80s, early 90s that were done by Miyazaki Hayao's like second in command or whatever, the guy
Hmm.
anyway, yeah, where the English dub is just every second word is fuck and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. You don't need yeah, there's enough going on visually. I don't need this as well.
Well, no, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think maybe that's again there was the culture gap thing with a lot of that stuff where there was a lot of stuff that seemed acceptable in Japan in terms of like nudity and violence and stuff, but that stuff immediately upgraded to like 15 or 18 certificates. So I think they were like, well,
We
let's
might as
make this a
well.
fully rounded adult experience and add
Or
some.
that, or go and a guy was had a demand like, oh, if you dub this into English, please make sure it's really sweary. Because it
Because the
often
thing is,
people
there's
like
not that much.
on a guy's stuff.
There's not that much like you can't swear that much in Japan. There's only a
That's
certain amount.
true.
You can say like shit or stupid or stuff like
Yeah.
that. But there's nothing with the diversity of a fuck in the
No.
Japanese language, as far as I know, that has that impact, right? And you can use
Yes.
certain body parts but it's not the same. It's not swearing
They
doesn't
lack
work.
they lack the Germanic roots of English. I think that it's like all of our best swear words actually I think come from the German.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so so anyway, just to answer your question,
Disgust. Yes.
to answer your question there. So basically, dubbed and released into English speaking markets in 2007 on VHS and DVD, with periodic re-releases on DVD since then.
Okay.
Most
So
recent,
maybe it is
most
out and about. I don't know if there's a
yeah,
Blu-ray, but
It says most recently the all-in-one 2014 DVD from Critical Mass. So
Oh, okay.
and he kind of goes through and it kind of tries to understand why this has been re-released and re-released.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
we watched a much older rip, right?
mhm.
From back in the, and yeah, we'll get to that at the end because I have this prehistoric CDRW. But so again, the other interesting thing about this I didn't realize it started life. It
Yep.
was a
As a
Sega
game.
Saturn game, yeah.
As a game, yes.
Which actually kind of
Fascinating.
makes more sense. I can kind of imagine you getting into this of the mystery of it more
Yes.
and trying to figure it out, being much more engaging as a video game than an anime.
Yes.
Although I don't know quite were the porny stuff were like cutscenes, like a little treat for your hard work trying to
The
detective
fan
skills.
service element of
Yeah,
it all.
yeah. I'm assuming that stuff's in the game. I don't know actually.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I've got the cover of the game is here on this blog, and yeah, it seems like the character designs are pretty close. So
Well, what's interesting is so one of the directors on it as well is Takayama Hideki, right? Who of course is Mr. Urotsuku Toji, right? He's the guy who directed those,
yes,
which might explain
so
of
it is worth bringing up at this point actually that if you were to have told me as you did, Nick, we're going to watch an adaptation. It's going to be a Lovecraftian hentai that's
right.
directed by a guy connected to.
Urotsuku
Uh,
Toji, you
yeah, I would have made
like
assumptions about
tentacles,
the
yes,
content,
yes,
and I would have, that old meme that was going around a decade and a half ago on the internet of like, well, I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going.
yes.
Evidently not, because
Oh,
what is stunningly absent from this is any
tentacles,
sign
yeah.
of an octopus or yeah.
So on the one hand, I'm very sorry to have let you down, Nick. But on
Hmm.
the other hand, my announcement for our next show, I'll be making up for that in
Oh, perfect.
spades. Definitely not one you want your coworkers to be watching, I think, the next episode.
Okay.
So yeah, so it starts off. It's so I would say just straight up at the beginning, um, the first episode of this I thought was really good,
Hmm.
and then it lost me. So the
Right.
setup, the first one is there's this kind of private detective character and his daughter, right? Are at
So
a
were you shocked when he revealed himself to be 27 and I was like, no, this makes no sense given his whole gravitas, the whole thing, and then like he's been in the States and back, and I'm like,
right.
he's not 27,
But
he's
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 still an Oji-san,
42.
they insist, right, on calling him an
Oh
Oji-san.
yes.
Yeah, which made me feel great. At 45, and you're even more
Mhm.
decrepit than
Oh
me.
God, I'm 49. Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, they
They
are
go to
kind
like
of
they go to a ski resort,
ski
right?
resort.
Basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the yeah, it looks like a nice place actually, and it seems to
Hmm.
be. But then there's a series of kind of quite horrible murders where eyeballs are pulled out and faces
Hmm.
are ripped off
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And our main character finds himself the prime suspect. And then there's all this other stuff going on, which in the end really has nothing to do with anything. There's like particularly in this first episode, there's like a blackmailing plot, which means
Hmm.
that one of our main female protagonists gets sexually molested and raped by this big fat guy.
Hmm.
Good scene. Um,
Hmm.
you know, taken on its own,
Merits. Indeed.
worked for me. That's all I'm saying. Um,
Uh-huh.
and but overall, this whole episode, I think, got the balance really well, right? Like it's got this gory mystery, and then it's got this bit of porn. And I was thinking about this as well. It's weird now in retrospect to think originally, like apart from when they came over in other parts of the world, and obviously people were interested in this kind of exotic weirdness, right? But
Mhm.
from the get-go, when they were making these OVAs in Japan, which would have been in rental shops, so it wouldn't have
Mhm.
broken the bank for people to rent it. So who's the demographic? I'm guessing this is like for lonely salarymen living alone, looking for a bit of horror, but also give them a bit of fan service, rapey hentai stuff. Is that the demographic they're going for? I'm guessing because there was an awful lot of this stuff, right? Which was like, and now there's straight up you can just get animated porn, right? There's loads and loads and loads and loads of it. But for a particular time there was this mix where it wasn't just, I mean, you had the porn as well, but it was like, no, that's not enough. There's an audience out there. They like the hentai stuff, don't get me wrong, but they want something else. They want like action or mecha or, I mean, everything got pornified, right? At a certain point in anime. So it's fascinating to me that it wasn't good enough to just rent the hentai porn. You had to mix it up with a thriller or horror or something. And this comes from that peak period of that, right? I think.
I mean, it almost makes me think again of the golden era of like cinematic porn as well, when there was more of an attempt to craft a film like that had some characters and a story and you know and where the sex sort of
you have to sit in your filth and soak in it to see how the story panned out. Right? If you hadn't paced yourself right.
Exactly. But
in fact, if I'd have gone to see Enema Bandit Water Power at the 42nd Street Theatre, I think I would have climaxed way too soon.
I would imagine you would have looked like that guy in Scanners.
Yeah. Basically, as soon as the Gene Silver turns up, I'm done. But I want to know what happens, right? Because it's quite the.
But I was going to say, I mean, well, it becomes clear as the 4 episodes play out, and so spoilers, everyone here. If you don't want to know where this goes and what the big reveal is, kind of end of episode 3, is that I would say the biggest influence on this isn't necessarily any actual story by H.P. Lovecraft. It's the Stuart Gordon Yuzna movie, The Reanimator, right?
Yes, because Herbert West turns out to
be our kind of villain in disguise, and they kind of pull it a little bit. It's now a Herbert West who has also had access to the Necronomicon, so there is a connection to the Cthulhu.
It's a very loose connection,
but very tenuous.
And it goes to the United States as well, right? And we should mention there is also a character called Clark Ashton.
Yes, which is a nice little Easter egg for the actual
And each episode has a couple of explicit sex scenes, and in the version we watched as well, obviously prepared abroad, uncensored.
They're quite surprisingly.
And obviously the people who made it were aware that so the thing, one of the scandalous things that happened early on when this stuff was being exported, I think this might have been Urotsukodoji actually, or the Blue, one of these things, was the thing is because Japanese animators knew that it was going to be censored anyway, they didn't bother drawing pubic hair on a lot of the characters, right? So when that stuff was released and censored in other parts of the world, it was even more problematic because everyone seemed to be prepubescent, right?
Yes.
But I noticed on this one there was like pubic hair drawn, at least some of the scenes. So they were aware that that censoring may come off at a certain point, so we better put some hair in there so we're not.
It's fascinating to me that they animate it at all, like that somebody goes to the time and trouble of doing this cell animation.
There's a lot of,
and it's blitted anyway by the mosaic.
Dripping fluids, there's throbbing organs. I mean, it's all, but again, not to the extent. I mean, if you really get into this stuff, there's way worse and more explicit and
in fact, it's surprising
time, right?
No, it's surprising story, and really certain episodes I was almost like, I've almost forgotten for a while that it was.
No, it's just it's a nice little bit of spice. I think it's in there, and it's it's pretty sexy. So it's like it's just like a good sex scene in a film.
I will say that the 90s-ness of the hairstyles, like it's funny, there are 90s anime hairstyles that are very specific, that are really horrible, like these weird like kind of things that I'm just like,
but you gotta love them. when we were talking, you were talking about when we were talking pieces, those those certain type of gym shorts that you had.
Right.
I think they kind of belong to that category.
It works in the same way, maybe. But yes, there's I was struggling a little bit with the hair. Um, but yeah, no, overall it was, you're right though. The first episode is the strongest, and then it
By
is
far, I
a
think.
bit of a bit of a law of diminishing returns.
Yeah,
Part of it feels like the second half of the whole thing is almost a retread of the first two episodes, but just now relocated.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like I've already seen exactly this. Like again, they're isolated in some place, and somebody's picking people off one by one. And
And the,
again, because our private investigator Oji-san, who's 27,
yes,
he is a suspect partly because he has this whole amnesia thing, right? Where something has happened, some cult murders happened when he was in the States, and
yeah.
he's not sure how he's involved and all this stuff, right?
The story doesn't really make any sense either.
And I don't think Clark Ashton Smith was a ripping kind of like football player, like American dude, like
You're wrong, Nick. You're wrong. Because he's
ah,
not Clark Ashton Smith. He's Clark Ashton. Totally different.
oh, there we go.
Yes, who went to Miskatonic University as well, right? I don't think anyone mentioned Arkham. I didn't notice, but the references come thick and fast in the last couple of episodes, don't they? Like they don't do that so much early on. They do only mention, well, the first episode opens with the history of the Necronomicon, right? And then
Yeah.
it's almost forgotten about.
Which is worth bringing up. The design of that Necronomicon is much more inspired by Sam Raimi's version of it from Evil Dead than it is
Yes,
any of the actual.
of course. That's the other thing we
Lovecraft.
forget is Evil Dead is kind of a Lovecraftian
Oh yeah, yeah.
part of the. It's part of the
It's in the
larger
mix for
universe,
sure.
right? Yeah. Which we'll be doing soon on a septic shock road trip because we have reached Michigan. So we're
Wait.
on.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, but I'm confused. So you're doing like that seems like a very mainstream film to do.
Well, yeah, but the original one, I mean, the first one, it's a proper independent labor
Oh,
of love.
this is true. This is true.
So we definitely. Plus, it's throwing a bone to Ron because I make him watch so much
Right.
rubbish, and he loves Evil Dead. So
At least you should make him watch what is it? Watcher in the Woods or whatever. The
that's what I'm going to do within the woods. We're going
good.
to, and
Within the Woods.
the rhymey shorts.
Oh, nice. Like the
Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that stuff. Yeah, because
it's
I think
murder and all that stuff.
yeah, I think someone's put that stuff. Isn't there like a disc with all that stuff on?
I think there is.
Yeah. So that'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So Mystery of the Necronomicon. I do like the first episode.
yeah.
But it seems weird to just recommend that as a standalone, really, doesn't it?
Right.
Although
Yes.
it does, yeah, no, I really thought that I was very disappointed when the second, third, and fourth turned out to be, like you said, law of diminishing. Like each one seemed to get less interesting because that first episode is pretty strong.
Yeah.
I thought in every like all bits of it work. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
All the moving, throbbing, psychic
Right.
parts work very
They
well.
should Jeffrey Combs in that. I bet they didn't though for the English dub. It would have been really nice if they had
Right.
had.
But you know, it's got good gore, it's got an intriguing story, it's got good filth. It's like it all works, you know.
Mhm.
Such a shame that that it doesn't extend to the whole thing, really.
Yeah.
Although I'm gonna have a look around on YouTube if anyone's got a long play through the Sega Saturn game.
Original game.
I'm
Yes.
gonna have a look at that. Yes.
All
So
right. So this is weird. Okay. So actually, just bringing it back for a second, apparently there was a game adaptation of the TV version of Shadow over Innsmouth.
oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but it came after, like, so the show came out, and then apparently it was popular enough that it was spun off into some sort of like platformer game for yeah.
Fuck, Nick, are we gonna have to start doing a video game?
No, no,
Oh,
we're not.
okay.
I don't have the time for that or the
It's a
patience.
little tempting though. Let's put it this way. If I already had, because some people do, and you can do it nowadays, relatively simple. If we had all the consoles or emulators or whatever,
Mhm.
and because all that stuff's within, but
Yes.
you know, And yeah, like you said, if we had more, because that really is a time sponge. Is that video games are not part of my life anymore.
I mean, I'm hoping to retire in about 5 to 6 years.
Yeah,
So, we could put a pin in that and then post-retirement.
especially retro stuff, like all the games I didn't play back in the day, because
Mhm.
again, you couldn't afford to buy them all,
Yeah.
right? They weren't free. So yeah, there we go. Maybe for our retirement, we might do I don't know what we're going to call it, something to do
Brilliant.
with video game. But actually, the idea does slightly appeal to me. Like yeah, if it was just or even watching playthroughs or something like obscure old games, especially if they're tied into anime, or
Mhm.
there's definitely a seed of an idea there, I
Right.
think.
So were you able to rent, like, for example, like Nintendo cartridges? Like, was there like because I mean, that
No,
was
I don't think so. Again, maybe in the inner cities,
okay.
but
Because definitely that was the only way I got to play a lot of games was because you could rent
no
them for a
rental.
couple of
Basically, you
days.
bought them, and then your friends would have had, and you swapped, and
Yeah.
that extended. But no, pretty much it was a. I mean,
It was a
earlier on
pay
it
for it
was.
was a pay for play situation for you guys.
Yeah, it was easier in the pre-cartridge era. Cassettes were a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and then you could just copy them, right?
Yeah, but the games were crap. Uh, I mean, they were good then, but
I have a lot of sympathy for the Spectrum 48K.
have you? This is the thing that me too. I have great memories. I was right. Have you actually gone back and watched those games? Like you can go on YouTube and you can look up like Bomb Jack, or have you watched like those games?
Barbarian was the one I really enjoyed.
Yeah, watch it. You would be surprised how much your brain has filled in.
Right.
They are so clear. I remember them being, obviously compared to games now, but my memories of them are being relatively fluid. But you go back and you watch them, and they are
Right.
surprising. Eh.
Clunky.
Like to a shocking degree.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
anyway,
48K is not that much, Clive, when it comes
no,
to
I'm not having a go at it. I'm just saying, like,
they
if you
were doing the
go
best
back,
with the materials they had.
they got the music right. I'll give them that.
Yes, they did. Yes, all that MIDI stuff
Brilliant.
is yeah.
So anyway,
So
ta-da!
I'm going to say cautiously, I would personally recommend the Shadow over Innsmouth film if you're interested in
Yes.
that story and in seeing a version that's not the Dagon version, I would say. And your mileage may vary with the hentai Herbert West stuff.
Yes. Let's put it this way. If you're the type of person who's jonesing to watch a 55-minute early 90s Japanese TV adaptation of Shadow of Innsmouth, you're gonna fucking watch it anyway, regardless of what we think. You've probably already seen it.
Yes.
So yeah, it's almost a moot point, I think. It's
Mhm.
either you're into it or what the fuck are these guys talking about, and you turned off
Yeah.
ages ago. Um,
Mhm.
right. So now comes our big announcement for our special.
Okay.
It'll be our Christmas or
Oh,
post-Christmas,
what better way to celebrate the birth
extremely festive. So
of our Lord? Yes.
the the one of the oldest bits of media that I have here, the
Hmm.
CDRW, you can see crossed out transporter.
Ah.
So when I was a very naughty boy back in the day, when I used to download things, not anymore, of course, I'm a law-abiding citizen now. So
Mm-hmm.
when's transporter? 2003 or something?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously it's post that, but at some point I have this disc here with Mysteries of the Necronomicon,
Hmm.
episodes 1, 2, and 3. I didn't
Okay.
have 4 for some reason. Um, and then Angel of Darkness 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then I realized, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever actually watched Angel of Darkness Injugakuen, which is one of the, big hentai tentacle series, despite having watched a few of the live action
Adaptations. Okay.
East on Campus films.
Okay.
So for our next show, and
Hmm.
I've actually found an upgrade as well, so we're not
Okay.
going to throw this away. Um, we will be watching the entire run of Angel of Darkness hentai anime, which I think is 4 or 5 episodes,
Okay.
and all 5 of the live action spin-offs too.
Okay.
Yep. See, I knew you'd be pleased, you filthy git.
Yeah, I suppose hopefully this is going to end up going into my actual Christmas downtime from work, because
Yeah,
that
yeah,
does
we
sound
can
a lot
record
of
it just in
watching.
time. So we capture the festive spirit of,
Yes,
yeah,
I'll have a mince pie with me to
yes. You can have
an
some
attend.
tentacles behind you with baubles hanging on them. And
Perfect.
yes. So there we go.
Okay.
Something to look forward to.
I look forward to seeing this stuff show up in my Google Drive at some point in the near future.
Yes, we'll be having a very Merry Christmas. We might have overdone it, but yeah, we'll be sporting New Year splints on our penises.
Sweet Jesus.